All right, well, good evening and welcome to the Adult Children of Aging Parents, or ACAP, as we like to call it. Tonight's program is Nutrition and Aging. My name is Bruce McReynolds, and I'm the chapter coordinator of the Adult Children of Aging Parents chapter here in Guilford County. We're coming to you from Greensboro, North Carolina, and I believe we have guests throughout the area. So if you're here in Greensboro or Guilford County, we hope that you stay dry this evening and avoided all the storms. We're glad to have you with us, and we're appreciative of anyone that has, this isn't your first time. We're glad to have you back with us. So as if you've been with us before, you may know that our ACAP programs are brought to you each month. We host a program the third Thursday of each month at 7 p.m. So if this is your first time, we'd love to have you back again next month. Some of our topics coming up in April on the 15th, we'll be looking at aging on a income. On May 20th, we'll be talking about managing behaviors of Alzheimer's and other age-related dementia. And then in June, we'll be looking at caregiving at a distance. So mark your calendars and to having you join us for our future programs. If you'd like to be notified of our upcoming programs, you can send us an email at acapguilford@gmail.com. And also check us some of our podcasts out on our local library. You can find those at acapcommunity.org. So in order to bring you our programming, which is free of, we have some wonderful sponsors that have stepped up to help sponsor us throughout the year. So we'd like to thank Providence Place, Griswold Home Care, and Mount Zion Baptist Church for helping support us throughout the year. We'd like to particularly thank Home Instead for being our sponsor for tonight's program. The comfort of home can't be beat. Home care services allow people to flourish in everyday life where they know and where they love, while getting a little help to stay independent and mobile. Home Instead's care services help to enhance the aging experience by providing practical support at home with a human touch. Their professional caregivers assist older adults with common activities of daily living, as well as assistance with meal preparation, errands, and other household services that build lasting relationships with families they serve. Home Instead's personalized care plans help lift the caregiving burden from family members to keep those strong family bonds intact. Home Instead's office in Guilford County has been serving adults, older adults in the area for over 21 years. Each Home Instead office is independently owned and operated and is part of an international franchise network of over 1,200 offices worldwide. Our mission is to improve the lives of seniors and their families everywhere. So thanks to Home Instead for making tonight's program possible. So let's jump into our topic for this evening. And I think it's especially relevant to where we are in today's environment. As we age, nutrition becomes even more important for health, functionality, and the ability to age in place and remain in the community. But as our parents age, they frequently find choosing and preparing meals challenging for a number of reasons. It could be health conditions, medications they're taking, oral health, dental issues, depression, decreased hunger, impaired mobility, and physical functioning. Also, there could be challenges with impaired vision or impaired cognitive. So how do we know what our parents should and should not eat? How do we know if they're getting adequate nutrition? What resources are available? So to answer some of these questions, we're excited to have with us this evening 2 experts in the field of senior nutrition. We'd like to welcome Reverend Carl Veirling and Lynn Weisner as our presenters for this evening. Lynn Weisner is employed by Cone Health as a clinical dietitian for the past 13 years. She works in both acute and post-acute settings. Working with the nutritional field, in the nutritional field, allows her the opportunities to impact the quality of patients' lives in real time. She enjoys working with older adults, which has allowed her to pursue additional certification in gerontological nutrition. She enjoys running, travel, and volunteering with her church, with her husband in church activities. So we're glad to have Lynn with us this evening. Also presenting with us this evening is Carl Veirling. Carl has served as a leader in the private sector, in the church, and in other nonprofit organizations. For 10 years, he served as pastor of a racially and culturally diverse congregation, where he started an innovative food pantry that was serving the homeless, seniors, and others struggling with hunger. He worked with a number of nonprofits, including serving as a president of the United Way Board of Richmond County. He's been a regular contributor of the High Point Enterprise. He holds a Master's of Arts in Ministry from Carolina Graduate School of Divinity, and is a graduate of South Carolina with a Bachelor's of Science in Psychology and a Master's in Human Resources. He's received numerous awards, including the Governor's Award by the state of North Carolina for his volunteer service. He has received the Hunger Advocate of the Year Award of the city of High Point, and has received other Humanitarian of the Year awards. His greatest joy is being married to his wife, Lisa, and they have two children and 5 grandchildren. So we'll be excited to hear from Carl a little bit later. So with that, we'll turn the time over to Lynn and hear from her some advice on nutrition and aging.
Hi, everyone. I'm glad to be with you guys tonight. If I can find my slides, we'll get started. Let's see where they are. Maybe. Thought I had all this worked out, but here we go. Okay. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Yes. Awesome. Woohoo. Okay. First hurdle over. Okay. Like I said, I'm glad to be with you guys. We're going to talk some about nutrition and aging. If you've ever heard the term, you are what you eat, that's kind of like where we come from with this presentation. You know, just thinking about how important it is. The food that we eat becomes part of our bodies, literally. So the goal of healthy aging is not just to to get through aging, but to make the most of the quality of our life. So as I get closer to retirement years, then this becomes more and more important to me than ever before. One way that we can age well is by paying attention to the nutrition, what we're taking into our bodies. That can help us prevent malnutrition, can help us prevent deficiencies in different areas. So tonight, let's see, am I advancing? It's not advancing, or not? What's it not advancing? All right. Oh, there it goes. Okay, I guess it's just a slow. All right. So this is what we're going to talk about briefly. Just what is the role or the job of nutrition, and what are the requirements as we get older. Review some problems that may make an impact on us being able to maintain sufficient nutrition in the proper balance, and look at some strategies to help with daily challenges that come up in older adults. As Bruce has already mentioned, some of those has already touched on, and we'll talk more about those in a little more detail. So this is my mom. This is Ann. She came to live with us about a year ago in a couple of weeks when all the COVID things broke out. She was in a long-term care facility and became really sick. And so I was able to bring her home. And so anyway, she's a great joy to me. She has dementia, and she was diagnosed 12 years ago. So we've gone through the process of, I've had one-on-one experience with the things that I'm going to be talking with you more about tonight. So as we do get older, one of the things that happens just in general with older adults is something called muscle loss, or sarcopenia is a term that is used for that. Just, the muscle shrinks. There's an increase in weakness and more of a debility as far as being able to be mobile, higher risk for falls and fractures. Another thing that happens as we get older is the metabolic rate slows, or just basically, we're not using as much energy as we used to. So it becomes more important that we make the most of the energy we are taking in. What are the foods that we are taking in, to focus on choosing higher quality foods. There's a change or a difference in our sense of hunger and thirst, with a slowing of our metabolism. We're less hungry. We're not moving as much. And a lot of times people aren't as thirsty as they used to be, and the thirst signals aren't as strong. So people become more dehydrated. Also, there's a slowing in how fast the food moves through our system. So there's a greater risk for problems with, indigestion, constipation, and other problems that can make an impact on how much nutrition, how we're able to maintain our nutrition. For community dwelling seniors, just getting enough nutrient-dense food is one of the main reasons that there's a likelihood of developing malnutrition. Malnutrition is a problem for up to 1 out of 2 older adults. There's an increased risk in up to 60% of hospitalized older adults may be malnourished. Just chronic health problems can also lead to an increased risk for malnutrition. Just by focusing on nutrition and targeting the malnutrition, addressing that problem, then we can decrease healthcare costs, we can improve our outcomes, we can support our families' healthy aging, and just improve the quality of their health care. Some of the things to think about that are really important in caring for our loved ones is, these are some red flags to be aware of that are increased risk for malnutrition. If there's an unplanned weight loss, which brings me to, I'm not sure if you are weighing your loved one or having them weigh on a regular basis. That's really important, just so you can be aware of where they are in their weight, or their clothes, if you're not weighing them, are their clothes fitting the same. So paying attention if there's changes in how they're eating. Maybe they're not eating as much as they used to, or they're eating a few bites and they're complaining that they're full, or they're feeling weak or tired. It's more difficult for them to get around. They just are sleeping more. And then I can't see my other, increase in swelling or edema fluid buildup can also be a sign that they're not getting enough protein. So why does what we eat matter? You know, as I mentioned before, you know, what we eat becomes part of us. So, you know, our body, when we take food in, we have all these enzymes in our body that begins to break that food down, and it sends it all over the body to do work, sends it to our cells all over our body just to do different jobs. If we want to prevent nutritional frailty and chronic disease, some of the keys to that healthy aging for us is we want to prevent nutritional frailty. So just having a clear understanding that our daily food choices can make a major difference in our health outcomes long term. So as caregivers, some things that we should be aware of, and what I hope you'll take home as a caregiver, is that every bite counts. And being consistent is a tremendous key to helping our loved one either prevent malnutrition, prevent dehydration, just trying to make sure that they're getting sufficient nutrition day to day. Our bodies function at an optimal level when we're eating at regular intervals. So all the time I have people tell me, you know, they don't eat breakfast. It's probably one of the #1 things I hear from patients. So it's really important that we encourage them to try to eat at regular intervals through the day. And you know what happens, and that may mean that they're eating a little bit lighter meal in the evening so that they can be hungry in the morning. A lot of people aren't hungry in the morning. So just by planning our meals too can really help, depending on where you all are as far as what level of care your parent or your loved one may be requiring. Planning meals ahead of time on the weekend can really help if you're still working, just to make sure you have what you need on hand. It can really help prevent missed eating opportunities as you get into the week. So that brings me to the question, how would you describe your household diet? You know, does it look like this? You know, is it perfectly healthy with fresh vegetables and fruits and lean meats, whole grains, legumes, or they're legumes. I call them dry beans. I'm from the South. So eggs, low-fat dairy, and then low-sugar type beverages. You know, that's our best choices. So ideally, though, most people I talk to don't tell me this is the way they eat day to day for the most part. It usually looks more, sorry, that's cell phone, sorry. Hopefully my husband will grab that. So most people, or a lot of people I talk to, this is what their diet looks like. I'm so sorry. Wasn't counting on that. So, okay. So more often I hear, you know, people say either they can't prepare, they don't have time to prepare meals for healthy meals, and they're grabbing fast foods, cheeseburgers, hamburgers, hot dogs, something quick and easy. So what happens is, though, when you are choosing these, when you're making these as choices, then there's not very much nutritional value. So our cells aren't really getting fed very well. So I had a patient the other day. She was so cute. She told me that her breakfast was oatmeal cookie. She had an oatmeal cookie with her, like when she took her medicine. And she thought that was a good choice because it had oatmeal in it, which I thought was so adorable. But anyway, you know, not the ideal choice for breakfast. So I just put that up there in honor of her. She was so sweet. If you're not reading labels, though, that's something I definitely want to encourage you to begin to do, because it's really important to know what we're buying and what's in what we're buying. Everything, most everything has labels or a few things. Of course, if you're buying fresh items, that's not labeled usually, but packaged goods are usually always labeled. And so depending on what you're looking for, when you're thinking about the nutrition and the calorie content, always look to see how much is a serving, how many calories is in a serving, what is the size of the serving. Like this is a label for those cookies, so this is 170 calories. The serving is that one package, but the packaging can be very deceptive. So, sometimes the serving size is very small, a lot smaller than what we typically eat, of the items. So just paying attention to how much is a serving. And then the other things, like if you're looking for salt, if your loved ones on a low sodium diet, or if they're diabetic and they're watching their carbs, you want to see how many total carbohydrates is in that food. Don't worry about the percentage daily value. Just, kind of ignore that and focus more on the serving size and what the actual, the breakdown of the items are. Okay, so just in general, the function of carbs in our body, when we eat carbs, that's our body's main source of fuel. It fuels our brain, our central nervous system, kidneys, our muscles. We can store a little bit. It's called glycogen. That's how we store it. When we eat carbs, our body breaks them down into simple sugars. That's absorbed into the bloodstream. As those blood sugar levels rise, then there's a hormone in our pancreas called insulin. It's released, and once it's released, it goes into our blood to help our cells actually take in that sugar and be able to use it for energy. If our pancreas is not working properly, then our blood sugar levels rise, and that becomes a problem, like with diabetics. So that's carbs. That's our energy. Proteins. Every cell has proteins. They help our body make repairs, and they help us make new cells. Proteins is used to make new cells. A lot of times when people I talk with, especially women, I don't know, that just seems to be more common in women, tell me that as they get older, they just really don't want meat anymore. So that becomes a real problem with being able to get enough protein in. If we're thinking about spreading that protein out to each meal, then if they're eliminating meat, that really can make it difficult to meet the protein needs. When you're not getting enough protein in, then, that just exacerbates the muscle loss and, increases weakness. So then finally, fat. That's the most concentrated form of energy that we have in our diet. It does have a job of helping us absorb certain nutrients like A, D, vitamins A, D, E, and K. It is more difficult to lose fat as we get older, though. We do become more fat naturally. So I just want to talk, this is an example of some good carb choices. These are things that are higher in fiber. They're, when we eat carbs, the complex carbs are good for us because they pack in more nutrients. We're thinking you're getting better bang for your buck. So they are higher in fiber, they digest more slowly, and they're a good option if you're trying to watch your weight, with weight control, because they fill you up. And if you have diabetes, if you're diabetic, it helps to slow the absorption of the sugar in your blood, so your blood sugar levels don't spike after a meal. So that can be helpful. These are just examples of lean sources of protein. Choosing things like chicken, fish, lean beef, 93% lean or better if you're buying hamburger. If you're buying steak, get a sirloin or filet. And then if you're not, if you're vegetarian, the beans, the legumes, the nuts, tofu are good choices. Eggs is a great source of protein. So that brings me to, which I already touched on, just science supports, spreading our protein and our calories, our meals, balancing our meals through our day. That can help for a variety of reasons. But the protein, 25 to 30 grams, just in general, with each meal we don't store protein. So whatever we eat for that meal, our body uses what it needs. And then if there's excess, it's just either stored as fat or used as energy. We don't have an ability to bank that protein to use for later. So that's why it's really important that you get it at each meal.
Lynn, we've got a question from Dee, was wondering about, oops, oh, hold on a second, it slid down from me. Doesn't eating healthy depend on where they are in their life journey? Can you speak to that?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I certainly agree with that. Now, for example, I'm thinking of, if they're more end of life, comfort care, hospice type care, then we usually liberalize the diet to have, basically whatever they want. We're not trying to, tightly manage their blood sugar and, say you can't have bacon for breakfast, and absolutely is very individualized. So what I'm given today is just kind of the broad spectrum of general healthy guidelines for a healthy older adult, not really someone who is more like end of life. Does that answer her question? I can't.
And another question is, my mom's facility serves hot dog, pizza, fried chicken, etc. Any recommendations for substitute nutritional items that can be provided?
Sure. At the facility where I work, we do have a liberalized diet policy there too. We used to serve, we did used to serve hot dogs too. So I do get that, but normally, and I don't know how her facility is, but normally there's alternate meal choices, so that there should be a way for her to choose. If she really doesn't want a hot dog or pizza, she should be able to choose a salad or, like a sandwich, a healthier sandwich, or another choice. Sometimes people rather have like a cottage cheese and fruit plate, or, there should be other choices.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So we talked about the carbs and the protein. And so these are the fats. We want to choose the unsaturated types, are the most healthy. So that would include things like avocados, the salmon, extra virgin olive oil. So if you're cooking, frying or cooking foods, ideally you want to use those, or use those in your dressings. In the middle, this infographic is from the American Heart Association, which is a great resource if you do have a family member with heart disease. I highly recommend it. They have all kinds of information, videos, meal ideas. It's a great resource. So the center part just talks about the things to limit, because they are the saturated fats, and that would be the bacon, the heavy cream, the butter, and the cheeses. Which I know makes a lot of people sad. Cheese is high in salt and it's high in saturated fat, and we really like it, but we need to limit it. And then finally, just really trying to stay away from the trans fats, which are on that far right side there, the donuts, and a lot of made with palm oil or coconut oil, those types of oils. Watch out for those when you're reading. That brings us to reading the labels on those. They're in a lot of the packaged, like donuts and things like that. Okay, so just to kind of pull all that together, the myplate.gov is another great resource if you want to just have some ideas about, meals. There's a great resource there for calculating needs. If you just want a general idea about what you or your loved one, how many calorie needs, what their calorie needs are. It's just a wonderful website. Also, the National Institute of Health has a great site. Like if you want to read more about vitamins and minerals, if you're interested in more information about what foods have certain nutrients, that's a great place to look for the information. It's a credible place to find information. So there's a tool there that, as I said, that calculates needs, but I'm just going to touch a little bit on just energy needs. How many calories do you need to keep to maintain a healthy weight? That's the goal, really, is to maintain a healthy weight. And I just use this for an example. I took a 120-pound person. If you're going to calculate their needs based on this information, you need to get your weight from pounds to kilograms. So you divide it by 2.2. That gets you to the kilograms. So just as a general guide, 25 to 30 or 35, it just depends on how active you are, calories per kilogram body weight. So if a person weighs 120 pounds, if they're eating about 25 calories per kilogram, that would be about 1,400 or 1,500 calories a day, which is really not very much. It's not a lot of food. But, things that go into that are how active they are, what's the disease state of the person, and there are other factors, are there wounds? Did they just get out of surgery? There's a lot of things, so this is very, can really fluctuate, but just so that you have a general idea.
Lynn, can I interrupt here with another question?
Sure.
Do you recommend high protein drinks like Premier, Ensure, or Boost? When should they be used, and are there times they should not be used?
I definitely am a fan of the oral nutrition, liquid nutrition. My mom has been on a liquid diet for 3 years. So if it wasn't for Ensure and, those type of drinks, she would not be here because she don't eat anymore. She's to the stage in her dementia that she just don't know what to do with food in her mouth. So yes, there are, for me, in my opinion, there are times when they are life-giving. We really recommend that people eat food first. I'm a fan of food first, but there are times when if a person's not hungry and they're not eating, then, and they can drink. A lot of times when people aren't even hungry, they can drink calories, or they will drink, even if they don't have an appetite. So a lot of times we do lean on oral nutrition drinks to help people either bridge a time where they've lost their appetite or just to support them ongoing. It's a great time to insert that would be like if they're not a breakfast eater and, but they would drink one with their medication in the morning. That's a good time to use a nutrition drink. So the protein needs are higher for older adults because we're not making new protein as efficiently and we're more at risk for losing our muscle. So, RDA, that's recommended daily allowance for adults for proteins, 0.8 grams per kilogram. So for older, for adults, and so I'm saying these protein needs, I'm saying like 60 and above, that rate increases from 1 to 1.2 grams per kilogram body weight. So it does increase some. And again, with that, that's affected by, what's going on with that person. It's, how active are they? Just all the things that go into the carbohydrate needs also come into the protein needs, especially if that person has been sick, if they're septic, their protein needs go really much higher than this. So it just depends on what's going on. But that's, just for healthy aging adult, this is the guide. Fluid, this is huge for older adults. A really common reason that people come to the hospital, older adults, is dehydration. And so that's something that as caregivers, we can really help, hopefully help prevent them getting to the place of being dehydrated. 6 to 8 cups a day is just a really general guide. How large a person is makes a difference in how much fluid they need. But just knowing, this in general, some things to know about fluids is fluids from all sources count. So if your loved one has heart failure and they're really having trouble getting fluid overloaded, maybe they're getting fluid from other ways, like from Jello, ice cream, soups, fruits, vegetables that are high in fluid content. All those things count for toward fluid, not just that, the fact that it's not just water, whatever they drink. And then a lot of the foods that they consume also contribute to the fluid. But, if a person's not eating, what happens is I have 2 people levels of people that I call their sippers. They just sip on fluids and they're really not drinking liquids. They're just sipping a little bit with the meal. Or, then some people are really good about drinking, they're good about getting their fluid in. So just knowing your loved one, kind of where they are, can really help you keep them hydrated. So just, I know I'm probably, Bruce, how am I doing? Got 5 minutes or something? Am I okay?
I think we're about out of time.
Okay, I thought we were getting close. I'm looking at the clock here, but I'm thinking I've probably been about 20 minutes, hadn't I? So just real quickly, I'll wind this down. Just to review quickly, what are some things that influence, and Bruce has already touched on this, just with taste changes, things that impact how much how much we eat or how much our loved one wants to eat. It's just the sensory changes, drugs make an impact, cognitive changes with the dementia, Parkinson's, maybe, whether they've had a stroke or not, food preferences, social issues, housing, can they afford to eat the food that they need? And then sometimes just having different food beliefs where they just, won't even eat a certain food group altogether, just eliminate some just odd food beliefs can really make a difference in just the nutrition status. So just quickly, with taste changes, try to make food visually appealing. That can really help. If they're on therapeutic diets, already said this, liberalize their diet as much as possible. If they have a poor appetite, offer them an oral supplement if they're not eating. Try to get them to drink a high protein, high calorie supplement. Modifying the textures, if they're having trouble, if their dentures aren't fitting as well as, or if they're having coughing with their foods, then maybe they need to follow up with a speech therapist. Just, we touched on just the nutrition components, the carbs, the proteins, the fats. What are the general requirements? What are some challenges, to meeting those needs? And then what are some things that, we can do? Just to close my little part, just remind, this comes from the National Council on Aging. I just thought it was a good way to just kind of sum up what we talked about tonight. Just knowing what a healthy plate looks like. looking for getting the best quality food for the money you're spending, the protein, the vegetables, the fresh foods, reading the labels, knowing how much is a serving, staying hydrated, and then stretching your food budget. So by getting healthy food, and Carl's going to talk to us more about some healthy foods. Okay.
And thank you so much. We
all
appreciate
right.
it.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
I've learned a lot this evening. Lynn Weisner from Cone Health. We appreciate you being here and sharing that information with us.
My pleasure.
So next up is Carl Veirling, and we'll turn the time over to Carl.
Good evening, everybody. What I want to talk with you about is what I think is one of the biggest issues in the state of North Carolina, and that's actually senior food insecurity and senior hunger. I had a law professor in grad school that always said that if you're going to have a train wreck, plan it. This is going to be one of the biggest issues the state of North Carolina faces over the next 15 years. With this group, it might seem a little strange I'm talking about this issue, because if you didn't care about your parents, you wouldn't be here right now. But there are a lot of seniors in our community that are really struggling, that really don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So the Food Alliance, just to give you an idea, we're this organization that's a grassroots organization that really started when the Greensboro High Point area learned that we were #2 in the nation in food hardship for the United States. We were #2. That was in 2014, 2015. We became #1 in the United States in food hardship. And food hardship just means that folks don't have enough money to buy the food they need. So we're this organization that works across lots of different organizations to address food insecurity and food hardship, trying to create just and equitable food systems. And we do that by taking a holistic approach. We work with 4 neighborhoods in the greater High Point area. All 4 neighborhoods are in the 27260 zip code. To give you an idea, that is the 5th poorest zip code in the state of North Carolina. The Burns Hill community actually has the 3rd highest concentration of poverty. So you're talking about a neighborhood that has a median income of $16,000. And try and imagine trying to get by on $16,000 a year. And we approach it by these different work groups that we have. Food access is all about how people access food, the kinds of food they access. That's your food pantries, your mobile meal programs, hot meal programs. Food security is a program where we're actually giving out grants for sustainable projects. Food education is exactly what you would think. It's teaching people about nutrition and food education. It's about teaching some people how to cook. My dad is 84 years old. Anything ever happens to my stepmom, the man's going to be in trouble because he doesn't know how to boil water, right? So that's a real issue. We also do a lot of research and policy and advocacy stuff. And then we have a senior task force working on the issues of seniors. And then our urban ag team is the community gardens, it's the urban farms, it's the farmers market. It is a food hub that has now been started in High Point. And it's all the executive team or our board. They don't direct any of this work. They support the work, which is really important, because what we've done is to go into these neighborhoods and say, how would you help us solve this problem? So everything that we do is based on what the neighborhoods say and what the team say. It's never directed by us. And so this is what we call our network of collaboration. It just gives you an idea of the different kinds of groups that we work with over the last few years. It continues to grow. This network has just proved invaluable as we were addressing the pandemic and how does our community respond. So I'll give you some definitions. Food security exists when all people at all times have physical, social, and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food, which meets their dietary needs and food preferences for an active and healthy life. One of the things that's really important for us is that we want to work to meet everybody's dietary needs, but people have preferences. Guilford County has over 112 languages and dialects in our school system. We're an extremely diverse community. And one of the groups that's aging are refugees that are growing older. That's a growing issue within the community. So I want to give you some statistics. So Feeding America says that the Guilford County food insecurity rate is 17%. And 20% of all those that are food insecure, meaning they don't have access to good, healthy food, are children. A survey was done in High Point back in the fall. As a result of COVID, 31% of the folks in the greater High Point community are struggling with food insecurity. A lot of the food pantries have more than doubled the number of people they're serving. And the statistics are just really high right now. And so there was a study that was done by the Food Research Action Center in 2017 to 2019 that found that the Greensboro High Point MSA is number 8 in the nation for food hardship, meaning people don't have enough money to buy the groceries they need. Well, Lynn's talking about buying healthy foods, but if you've been to the store, healthy foods are expensive. Sometimes the reason that people buy what they buy, that's all that they can afford. They can afford a Happy Meal. They can't afford a salad. So people make choices every day about the kinds of food that they're going to eat because of how much money they have. In 2016-17, we look at food hardship for the whole area. 19% of all the households in our area face food hardship. We were number 14 in the nation. So we went from number 1 to number 14 in a relatively short period of time. 25% of the households with children face food hardship, number 6 in the nation. And then the seniors, or those without children, were number 24 in the nation. So one of the challenges that we have, though, is a lot of the households with children are actually grandparents raising grandchildren. You see a lot of multi-generational households. We know that in our area, there are at least 1,500 grandparents raising grandkids. And so that has a real impact, because for all of us that have grandchildren, my grandkids are going to come before me. If I have a choice to make between food and grandkids, the grandkids win every time. So give you an idea, Highland Mills is a typical mill village. And these are the stats that we found from doing a survey within that community, that 50% of the residents, and these are seniors, choose between food and medicine. Well, if they're not getting the medicine they need, then they're not going to have a healthy lifestyle. And so I'm not going to read through all the numbers. I just want you to soak that in, though, is that people make a choice every day in our community about whether they're going to eat or pay their electric bill. Can't tell you the number of times that I've been into somebody's home who's older, where they've blocked off the house and they're living out of their den, the bathroom, and the kitchen, and that's it. That's all they can afford to heat. A lot of folks don't have enough money to have running water and electricity in some of their houses. I want to stop for a second and tell you how real this is. When I was a pastor, we started a really good food ministry, and we were serving seniors and lots of different groups. But one day we had a lady who always came to our food pantry. She called one day and said, "Pastor Carl, I've made this can of soup go as far as I can make it go. Can you help me out?" 2008, as we all remember, the economy fell apart. Her husband died in 2007, and she owned a construction company and lost just about everything that she ever had. And I was doing a presentation about food insecurity, and I was talking about seniors. And I talked about the number of seniors in our community that choose between human food and animal food. They're making a choice. Sometimes they blend the two. Sometimes they're only eating animal food. And a young lady called my board chair the next day and said she went home and sat on the bed and thought about what I had said. And it dawned on her for the first time that every time they went to her grandmother's house, her grandmother's pantry was always full of cat food, but she didn't own the first cats, and they never saw any cats around. So these are issues that are real within our community. And there's a lot of reasons for food insecurity. Bruce and Lynn have both touched on them. It's disability or functional limitations. It's a lack of reliable social supports. there are a lot of seniors that don't have that social support. It's a lack of reliable transportation, and they're not able to afford the groceries that they need. I mean, we have 24 food deserts in Guilford County. 7 of those are in High Point, and they're contiguous, which means that they all come together. One big block of our community is a food desert, and a food desert's an area where there are no grocery stores. Imagine being in a community where all you have is a convenience store. That's what they have in those 4 neighborhoods, and that's it. So we have the impact on healthcare, which Lynn has talked about. I don't want to go through all that, but again, we will spend more money on the healthcare cost the last 6 months of a person's life than we did in their entire lifetime. And my role at one time was managing health and welfare benefits for 24,000 employees domestically, plus all the international stuff that we had. And we're always looking at, how do you reduce healthcare costs? Healthcare cost our community, food insecurity cost our community over $100 million a year because of food insecurity. As a state, it's $5.5 billion to the healthcare system. That's 2 furniture markets in High Point. The biggest event in the whole state, we do 2 of those. It does not offset the cost of the healthcare system of food insecurity. Challenges for children of aging parents. One's pride. Pride. My father would never tell you that he has a need. Sometimes folks are just embarrassed. And then others will tell you it's none of your business. They don't want to be a bother. I heard that from my mom a lot before she passed away. She just didn't want to be a bother. The other challenge a lot of us have is our distance from our families. There are 5 children. We all live in different states. My father lives in Florida, and I'm the closest one to him. And so in the area that we're in, the world that we live in, we don't always have access to our parents. We don't really know what's going on unless we can make a trip down there. And I haven't been able to see my dad in over a year. So I really don't know everything that's taking place. And then there's family dynamics. And as a pastor, I saw that an awful lot, where the family had fallen apart. If we're in a situation where the family dynamics are such that we don't have a good relationship, then it's going to be up to us to mend those bridges. And part of that is asking for forgiveness or giving forgiveness. But we've got to have that relationship with our aging parents in order to really help them in their time of need. I can't tell you the number of families that I've worked with as a pastor that the person said, I don't want my child to know that I died until after I'm buried. And you see that. And we've got to be willing to overcome that, to do what's necessary to get beyond that. So there are lots of resources. We've got Senior Resources of Guilford, Inc. There's their phone number, the Meals on Wheels program. They've got community nutrition activity centers, a meal voucher program, and SNAP enrollment. SNAP is really a great resource for seniors. Unfortunately, a lot of our seniors only get $20 a month. And $20 doesn't go very far. But if you can convince them to bank it, just don't spend that money, use it in November and December for Thanksgiving and Christmas, you can have a good meal with the family. And it's encouraging seniors that, you know what, it's okay to enroll in SNAP. In High Point, we have Mobile Meals of High Point. Then there's always 211, which is run by United Way of North Carolina. And the Food Alliance, ma'am.
Sorry, we've got a couple questions if we
Sure.
could interject.
Sure.
How would people access these resources generally outside of Guilford County? Are some of these statewide and
211
national programs?
211 is statewide, and you have 211 in other states as well. That's the United Way program. So you can find resources there. Sometimes you just have to go on the internet and just look for what's available for seniors. In Randolph County, there are programs there for seniors. So it's just finding, you just have to do some research. But there are programs in most counties. However, I have lived in rural counties in North Carolina when I was in manufacturing. and they don't always have the resources. They might not have a Meals on Wheels program. You just have to search it out. What was the second question?
Well, there's a comment about there being more Dollar Generals popping up in our neighborhoods instead of markets providing fresh foods.
Yeah, that's a challenge. That's a challenge. You don't always get the best food from Dollar General. It's not healthy. One of the things that's taken place in High Point is that Growing High Point, which is a group of urban farmers and community gardens, they're actually providing fresh produce every week to Burns Hill. So you just have to, because we know Burns Hill doesn't have anything but convenience stores. There's nothing within walking distance. And High Point, Growing High Point just launched what they call a Grodega. And I'm on the committee for that one. It's a mobile grocery store that goes to these low income areas with fresh food and some of the staples that people need. So, but the challenge is that each community is going to have to start looking at this and really responding to a growing need. Feeding America is projecting that senior food insecurity rates are going to go up 50% over the next 15 years. 50%. And so we've got this silver tsunami that's going to hit our system. And I'm part of it. I'm on the tail end of the baby boomers. So I'm going to be part of that. But we need to be creating the resources now.
We've also got a comment from Teresa Jackson with the Area Agency on Aging to remember to reach out to them in any community, and that the farmers markets in North Carolina are accepting fresh produce vouchers through the agriculture program during growing seasons.
So one of the things that is available, like in High Point and Greensboro and different places at the farmers markets, what they call double the bucks, where you can use EBT benefits or SNAP benefits and get, more produce at a better price. Basically, there's doubling what you can get. Those resources are out there. One of the things that we're looking at in a study that we'll be doing this spring is how many seniors are actually ordering food online. Right? Everybody seems to think that's the answer. I'm not sure yet. So we're going to find out how many seniors are ordering groceries online, but then you still have to pay for the delivery fee. Right? If you're on a tight income, you might not be able to afford that. The second thing is there's only a handful of online services that actually accept SNAP benefits. Now I know they're working to expand that, but that's not always available. Got one more thing. So that's my mom. That was a couple of Easters ago, and I'm the worst caregiver ever, and I was relieving my sister so she could get time away. I wasn't sure Mom was going to survive that. But for her, she always had folks to look after her. She had children that were just there. And Mom was very active. If I was doing something with the homeless, my mom was with me. She was there. She was always buying stuff and giving stuff away. And she's part of the reason I do this. She really is. But Mom's one of the fortunate ones. She had kids out there that genuinely cared. A lot of the folks that I work with, that I see day in and day out, they don't have anybody. They don't have anybody that cares. One day I got a phone call from this elderly lady, and she needed some groceries for her nephew who was just being released from the hospital. And she was really concerned about him. So we don't have a food pantry, but I worked and got her some boxes of food for her nephew. And when I drove up to her house, it was a standard 3-bedroom ranch, except that the screens were coming out and the bushes were overgrown. You went around to the side and there was an RV with rotted tires and a Cadillac just sitting there with flat tires, and the carport was coming down. And I knocked on the door and she opened the door, and she was living in her den and in her kitchen. and she wouldn't let me go any further than her kitchen table. And she told me her story, and everybody has a story. And her story was that she was a nurse at one of the local hospitals and fell on hard times. And I asked how she was doing. Is there anything we could do for her? And she said, absolutely not. She didn't want our help. But when I left her, I left wondering who was going to look after her. And there are a whole lot of folks in our community that struggle with that. So if you know a senior, reach out to them and see how they're doing and check on them. Be willing to go to the grocery store for them and provide the resources that they need. And this really is a high-level view of seniors and senior food insecurity, but I think it's important that people know this is a real issue in our communities. Any other questions?
I think we do have one question for Lynn. Jennifer has that question.
The question is, what is the best way when an older adult is saying, I'm full, but they have barely eaten? Any tips or tricks on how to get them to continue to get more intake?
Yes, there are some things you can do to address that. One thing you can do is make add calories to the foods that they are able to eat. Like, for example, sometimes we'll add like cream, add butter to their food. I mean, it's one of the few times you can actually add fatty type foods to what they're eating so that you can increase the calories that they're getting in. And, you know, it could be, I mean, I don't know what their problem is, you know, maybe they already have seen the doctor about this, but sometimes the doctor can give medications that can help address some of these, you know, that type of problem. If it's not that kind of situation, then eating more often, you know, since they can't eat but a little bit at the time, eating more often is really important. And then getting as many calories in with each little eating occasion can really help keep them from losing weight. Getting in a high calorie, high protein type supplement can also help.
Very good. Well, I believe we're out of time. Lynn Weisner with Cone Health, we appreciate you being with us and for information that you've brought with us, and Carl Veirling with the High Point Greater Food Alliance. Carl, we appreciate your information and bringing to light a lot of insecurities in our area. I know we have several folks with us this evening that provide services in their own community. We want to thank you for being with us and for all that you do in your own communities. And certainly thank you for everyone else that's joined us this evening. We hope that you found it helpful. We would invite you to join us next month, April 15th at 7 o'clock, when we'll be looking at aging on a fixed income. And we would especially like to thank Home Instead for sponsoring our program this evening. We appreciate them and what they do in our community. So with that, we'll bid you good night, and we look forward to seeing you next month. Have a good evening.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye.